All right, everyone. Just invited Dr. Webster, so hopefully he'll be on here in a moment. One of the things that we're going to share with you today are some talking points about information that's been diluted over the years or information people haven't taken seriously enough. Let's see, wants to be on your video. Let's see, how do I get just to prove go. So I've been on the radio for 22 years, and Dr. Webster's been on for about 10 years or so, and we have shared. Hey, Doc.
Beautiful.
We've shared some of the really important information that most people don't get when it comes to the truth about health and wellness. What is that noise in the background?
Talking to me?
Yeah, you.
Might have been my chair. Is that?
Oh, okay.
I'll try not to move too much.
Oh my gosh. So I wanted to get on with you today because I know how important it is for us to share information that most people don't receive because there's too much bias. There's this group of people in the media that want the fluff. Remember years and years ago when they would say, well, to burn more calories, park further from the door when you go to the grocery store or whatever. And I think that's the dumbest information I've ever heard because as fit as I am, that's the last thing I want to do. So let's give people.
George,
I'm sorry?
That's my trick.
What?
That's what I do.
Oh my God.
I take the stairs up to my third-story office.
Well, taking the stairs to your third-story office, I get. But when it comes to just parking your car further away, but you also don't work out, right, Webster?
I work out. Come on now.
All right, so here's what I'd like to do, and I shared some of this with you before. I want to take people through topics and progress. As we progress, they progress. We empower them. They grow with us. And we'll cover a lot of foundational things that most people don't cover. So when it comes to nutrition or exercise or even the triggers that make people launch off the wagon, not even just fall off, they go off hard, and helping them to get back up on and what that takes to do that. I want to share something that I don't think many people really know about either one of us or can appreciate, and that is how we began in this industry and why. And while that might not sound compelling, it's extraordinarily compelling when you can have relatable stories and challenges to help people recognize where they are today, why they are today, and how to get to where they want to be tomorrow. So why don't you go first, Doc?
Okay. I'll have to take this all the way back to when I was 16 years old. I was infatuated with bodybuilding at the time. I read every Muscle and Fitness magazine and just absorbed all the material I could. So when I would go into the weight room, I come from a small town. In the weight room, we had people that were in college and high school, people who were full-fledged adults, 25, 30, 40 years old. We had a whole array of people because it just was a small town. There wasn't that many people that was going to just pack the weight room. But I remember at 16 years old, I was working out with a guy who was 5 years older than me, and he didn't know that much about it, even though he was a college athlete at the time. But I was helping him with just basic exercise form and encouraging him to do certain types of workouts to get the most out of his weightlifting and out of his exercise routine. And I just remember him just looking at me and saying, "I can't believe how much you know about this stuff. Where do you learn all this? You have to go into a field like this. You have to be a trainer or you have to do something in the fitness or exercise industry." And that was kind of one of the first things that planted a seed in my brain, I guess, that this is in fact something that I love to do. Although it wasn't for about 8 years later that I decided which direction I would ultimately take it. And at that point, I was 24 years old. I had become an electrical engineer of all things, which is completely the opposite of something in the health field. Ironically, I did that because I didn't exactly like my high school biology class. My biology teacher was very strict and difficult. She was a good teacher. She was really good at chemistry and physics, which I also took from her. But for some reason, that biology class just didn't resonate with me. I don't know why. So I decided to go electrical engineering because all I had to do was calculus and differential equations, and I could get through electrical engineering without having to take an extra biology class. So as strange as that may sound, knowing me now that I pretty much live in the biology world, certainly the human biology world, it just seems strange. Even to me, it sounds strange. But I was able to get through that, but I knew it wasn't for me. And it wasn't until I was 24 years old, my now wife, I was just dating at the time, she herniated her disc. And we went to a family, it was my aunt actually, she was working for a chiropractor at the time, and he was able to help her tremendously. Like within one weekend, he adjusted her 3 or 4 times, did some traction on her, and she was perfectly fine. And in fact, she's fine to this day. She doesn't have any problem with her lower back. So it was a tremendous turnaround, and that really opened my eyes because I started thinking about all the other things that a chiropractor can do. And I thought, okay, this is the industry, or this is the direction that I want to go, become a chiropractor, but also take advantage of the ability to help people with fitness, exercise, and nutrition and diet and other foundational aspects of their health.
So I think that's interesting because by you and I doing this, we've been working together for 10 years. And by you and I doing this, there's certain things I didn't know, and I had no clue that you went back that far and had that focus, especially the bodybuilding world. You look nothing like a bodybuilder, Webster. So
no, I'm not. I'm an ectomorph.
Yeah, so am I. So my story is a little different. I think it relates to many more people who have experienced challenges in their life. And when you become introspective, you can recognize that some, maybe all of those challenges are blessings. So at age 19, I become a police officer in Newark, New Jersey.
Ooh.
Enough said, right? So all the adversity, the death, the bureaucracy, the politics I dealt with at a young age. Even today, I couldn't handle it. I was there for 3 years. And so May 2nd of 91, at 22 years old, I moved to Fort Worth. I had a second cousin who was here with his family. And he said, come work for my company. Now, 91 was the recession. We were in a big recession at the time, or we're about to be. It was growing. And I was a grease monkey in his warehouse. I was pulling apart front-wheel drive parts for cars and reassembling them, all right? 17 days after moving here, I meet my first girlfriend, Julie. Now, the reason this is significant, because about a month after that, my cousin's company goes bankrupt. I have no job. I'm 23, I think now at the time. And Julie and her mom invited me into their home. And imagine being a single mother with a daughter, inviting someone like me into your home. And when I say someone like me, I mean, you know, here I am, this kind of bull in a china store all over the place, you know, bodybuilder focused mentality. And it was a blessing. So his company goes down. I sell the $4,000 I had as a pension for being a police officer in that short period of time. And I use that to begin going to technical schools. So for training, for nutrition, and so on, right? I started interviewing at health clubs, high-end health clubs. Didn't want to be part of the meathead scene. And there was this one place called Premier Club. If you're from Dallas, Fort Worth, you probably know Premier Club. It's now Lifetime. And I basically begged for the job. They said they weren't hiring at the time, but about a week later, on my birthday, they hired me. And I was real excited. So I start working there. Training was commission-based at the time. It might still be now. I don't know about that world anymore. And about a week after getting the job, riding on my motorcycle, I'll still remember where this is exactly. If you're from Dallas, you know Hillcrest Road, SMU University, and Mustang Donut. I'm right there. I'm driving. It's raining cats and dogs. Some guy comes into my lane. I have to lay the bike down. I didn't get hurt, but I was really, really concerned. Why? I had no motorcycle insurance, no motorcycle license. The guy stops and says, hey, let me help you. I said, no, get out of here. He said, I want to help you. I said, get the F out of here. But he wouldn't listen to me. Here's another one of those challenges that wind up being blessings. He gives me his information. Now, at the time, I had $500 left to my name because I went through that $4,000 technical school and food, just living, right, in a short period of time. 8 months, 10 months, whatever it was. Had $500 left to my name. A lawyer advised me from Premier Club about how to settle the case fast. Said, George, tell them you don't want to deal with lawyers. You want to settle this. And I got a $7,000 settlement about 2 weeks later. So I was able to extend that $500. I was eating like nothing. You know, I was starving. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. And so I take that $7,000 and I start putting some of that money into a billboard or a marquee in the parking garage that you will go up or come down. And it had my picture on it and said Body by George, right? And I start picking up clients right away. So I'm making a name for myself. I worked for 8 years at Premier Club, 7 days a week, took 3 vacations, and none of them lasted longer than 4 days because I never wanted to get to that place of where my next meal is coming from again. I was afraid, but I was also following my passion. So I always tell people, the people who are most successful, whether you like them or not, sometimes the catalyst or sometimes the motivating factor that continues in their life is fear. So they have a passion for what they're doing, but they're also afraid. So I'm there, and I'm doing well, and I start training Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, before he became a billionaire, I trained him for 6 years, 2 years while he was a billionaire. Toward my later years at Premier Club, I started training Michael Dell. He sent me an email about coming down to give him a revamp in his workout. I still have that email, by the way. And I trained him for a year and a half. It was. I trained Dennis Rodman. And for you older folk, I trained Dick Smothers from the Smother Brothers.
Yeah.
And then later on, some agent sought me out when I wasn't training anymore and asked me if I would train. You know, he saw my background and if I would train this young and up-and-coming country singer, Eli Young, from the Eli Young Band. Never heard of him.
Oh, yeah.
Nice kid. And I trained him for a while as well. But I want to take a little sideline here. I know my story is kind of long, but I don't think you know this either. One day, while I'm in the middle of writing my book, and I just needed some time to get away and to think, I'm in Premier Club, and I'm throwing this basketball from one side of the court to the other, just trying to get it in, you know? And I'm doing this for a while, and I'm just sitting in there in my focus. I go home, got some ideas, start writing, and you know when you're in the throes of something, the last thing you want is somebody to interrupt you, right?
Right.
Whether it's a phone call or your significant other, oh, honey, it's like, no, right? So I'm focused. I get a phone call. Hey, George, this is Andrew Wilson. We just wrote this movie. Want you to come down and audition for it. I saw you at Premier Club throwing the basketball. I think you'd be great for it. I'm like, Mike? Is this you, Mike? I don't have time for this. I'm writing my book. I don't have time. Click. Now, if somebody's an actor or an actress, the last thing they're going to do is that. They'll research a little bit, right? Phone rings again. Phone rings again. He said, no, George, really, my name's Andrew Wilson. We wrote this movie. It's called Bottle Rocket.
Owen Wilson.
Yes. Owen Wilson,
yes.
Luke Wilson, Andrew Wilson, all of them, all the brothers. I said, okay, but if this is a joke, I'm going to be really pissed off. I go down to the Stoneleigh Hotel, and talk about irony, they asked me to audition for a part as a police officer. Okay. And
you can probably handle that.
There were 2 lines, and I look at them and I said, again, something an actor, aspiring actor or actress would not do. I said, a cop wouldn't say this. I said, because I'm an ex-cop. They said, what would he say? So I wrote in 12 lines instead of the 2, right? So I write those 12 lines in, and we do all the scenes. I mean, I have my own trailer, and I'm like, this is what these people do. They endure this just to become a famous actor or actress. Harder than I would have had anticipated, not something I would want to do. So I go to the premiere, and I'm watching, and I'm watching, and I'm watching. Cutting room floor, never made it.
Oh, really?
So, but I was paid thousands of dollars. You get time and a half, and you're staying overnight and all this. So I did really, I think I made like 10 grand or something like that. It was for like a couple of days, and I was a nobody at the time. I'm a nobody now when it comes to acting. I don't know. So, but I wanted to share that with you because I had all these opportunities while I was at Premier Club. So then, again, toward my later years there, I meet the program director of a new station. It was a couple of years old, called The Ticket. Now, if you don't know The Ticket is the #1, #2 rated sports talk station in the United States. We're in a top 5 market here in Dallas. And I filled in for a host who was there a couple of times. And they wound up firing that host and taking me on, and I've been there for 22 years. So a little later on, some time goes by, I leave and I start doing consulting. Then I'm introduced to someone like yourself who talks about the importance of cleansing, how important that is to our body. Yes, for those of you who don't want to believe in cleansing because the body has its natural ability to cleanse itself, while that's true, the body can't handle the burden of toxins that we deal with every day, whether they're voluntary and we're eating all these bad foods and not exercising, or involuntary. Just read a study, Dr. Webster, last week, 7 million people every single year die from air pollution.
Wow. Oof. Hard to believe.
That's not even.
And you're absolutely right.
Right?
You're absolutely right. Our detox mechanisms are not meant to handle the modern burden of toxicity. And I think we'll probably do multiple shows on this topic. Yeah. And we're not making this a detox show, but you are absolutely right that we are not designed for the current level of toxicity in our environment.
Right. And so I'm about to wrap this up here. So I learned about cleansing the body and using a full body cleanse, not just a liver cleanse or a gallbladder cleanse, all that. And I'm doing these seminars at Parker College, where you graduated from, the #1 chiropractic school in the United States. And I wanted to expand it. I wanted to scale the business. So I started this website in 2005 called 21daybodymakeover.com. And I still have it today. Later on in life, I go to business school and I do really well in business school. I learned a lot of things I didn't know. And I launch another company called Genetic Direction, where we create these health management solutions using your DNA. So what is all of this that I'm sharing with you? I want everybody to recognize the mindset that I have today because of the people I surrounded myself with. I came from a culture in New Jersey that made fun of other people at their expense for my entertainment or for the other person's entertainment. That's how we bonded. And I know it sounds sick, but it would be, hey, Dr. Webster, would you comb your hair with a firecracker today? And
pretty much.
And then you both laugh a little bit, but it's at your expense for my entertainment, and that's our way of bonding. Well, I'll tell you what, I moved to Dallas. I didn't learn quick enough because I still had that mentality for about 4 or 5 years. And I wondered why people didn't want to hang around with me, why I was losing the friends that I made. And that's because of that oppressive culture that I dealt with where I came from in New Jersey. So that entire story, what am I getting at? I'm trying to show people that there are challenges that you'll always have through your entire life, and how you perceive those challenges and how you overcome those challenges. And when you look at the perception of that challenge as being a blessing, such as meeting a girl 17 days after I moved here. She wound up being Miss Teen Texas. She was in SMU, working really hard. I was a nobody. I didn't have any money. Moving in with her mom, her and her mom, getting in the motorcycle accident, getting the money from the motorcycle accident, no formal training with radio, getting on the radio, training these really famous people, Michael Dale and so on that I mentioned earlier, and the movie thing and making money for that, and then launching 21 Day and meeting the right people. If anybody's an entrepreneur and they're listening to this right now, you identify exactly with what I'm about to say. It is extraordinarily difficult to find the right business partners for a business who are available and who have the talent and the same idea that you're moving all in the same direction to make this business successful. The fact that all of these people that are involved in my company now, the 9 employees that we have, and we're growing rapidly, is very, very difficult. And it's one of those serendipitous moments. My team makes fun of me all the time because I'm talking about how serendipity winds up playing a role in our business all the time. So anyway, I share that because had I not moved away from New Jersey, that oppressive culture where I grew up, I never would have been as successful as I have been to be able to touch the lives of tens of thousands of people. Never, never, never. So it's meant for me to be here. So when I'm dealing with challenges, my challenges really are something that's fleeting as far as I'm concerned when I just sit down and I take time to recognize that those challenges in my life in the past have launched my career and validated what I'm doing and why I'm here.
Right. And I think one of the big takeaways that I get from your story, by the way, I knew a lot of that. I've known you for 12 years now. I've known some of those stories, but there were some things that I didn't know that I learned from that. That was quite interesting. I didn't know you were filming Bottle Rocket. That's pretty interesting. But the thing that I really take from this is the idea that you were presented opportunities. And I think everyone's presented with opportunities from time to time. And it's a matter of how do you take advantage of those opportunities? Because as I was going through chiropractic school, I remember I I think I was in my last year of chiropractic school. I went to a Tuesday evening talk, and it was about detoxification. And I remember the presenter was giving a nice talk. He was showing the technical side of it. And then he invited this big Italian guy to get up in front of us and tell us about his detoxification business. And he gets up there and he says, I'm on the radio. I have this detox business. He's a big, bold, loud guy, I remember. Just kind of an intimidating guy. And that's about all I remembered from that talk, was this guy who was like bigger than life. And then a year later, I graduate, and I decide that my big focus in my practice is going to be nutrition and weight loss and fitness. It's not going to be simply musculoskeletal chiropractic. It's going to be more than that. And I realized that while I had a good base of knowledge from chiropractic school, they did a great job teaching us the basic fundamentals. I didn't really know how to be a good clinician as far as nutrition was concerned. It's a much too complicated topic to be an expert to the level that I want to be an expert, when so much of our schooling was based on taking care of musculoskeletal conditions. It just didn't have, you just can't do both adequately. So I had kind of a minimal foundation. So what I did, I started my practice, and luckily the first 6 months of my practice, I had very little to do. I saw maybe 2 people a day at the most, and sometimes none. So I decided, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dedicate 6 to 8 hours a day studying nutrition and watching films, listening to podcasts, whatever I could get my hands on. I did nothing but that for the first 6 months. And then I got this call from this guy. It says, "Hey, my name's George. I need a nutrition expert, and this guy told me that you're the expert. Come meet me at so-and-so down in Highland Park." And I just thought to myself, this is an opportunity that I cannot pass up, because I knew who you were. I'd met you the one time, or I saw you speak at least. And I thought, I could easily say, no, I'm going to focus on my practice. But no, I took the opportunity or took advantage of the opportunity to meet you and then say, yeah, I can do everything you need. Even though in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm not quite there yet. I'm close. I've got some knowledge. Maybe I can fake it, but I know I'll get there. So I took advantage of the opportunity. You put me on the radio. I was scared to death the first time.
I remember when your knee used to shake up and down the entire time.
Doesn't surprise me. I remember the first time I was on, you brought on John Hammerly from, I believe, Fox 4, right?
Yeah.
And after the first segment, when I had done some speaking, he looked at me and says, "Doc, you know the information. Stop looking down at your notes. Stop being nervous. Stop acting like you have to be perfect. Just talk. You got this." And from that point forward, I was like, okay, I got this. He says I got it, so I got it. So take advantage of those opportunities, because had I passed on that opportunity, I easily could have, by the way. I could have just passed and said, no, I'm not interested in a radio gig or working with this guy's detox business. I'm going to focus on what I have. But it would have been a huge opportunity that I would have passed on. I wouldn't have been in the radio business. I wouldn't have met a great friend that I've had now for 12 years. So I thank you for taking my business in a direction that I never could have gone without you.
You're welcome. That's very nice. Thank you very much. We have a couple of comments. Would you like to address them with me?
Please, yeah.
So Burke wrote and asked me if I'm still doing intermittent fasting. So Burke, I do every once in a while. My main focus, if you go to 21daybodymakeover.com, click on the word keto cleanse at the top. I talk about my focus over the last now 5 months, or maybe 5 months, following the ketogenic diet with my cleanse, and I show my blood work on there. Because everything I was trying to accomplish with intermittent fasting, I was getting some of it, but I didn't get as much of it as I did with the keto cleanse. And I'm not dismissing intermittent fasting. I believe in it 100%. Here's what I don't like is that most people leave out, and Dr. Webster, I want you to expand upon this. Most people leave out the disadvantage of intermittent fasting, let's say for life or for years. And there's 2 of them. One is the cognitive decline you have when you intermittent fast. And people who are intermittent fasting where they're only eating for about a 6-hour period every single day, or maybe even 7, but they're doing it every day. There's no cycling. The other one is muscle wasting. There's a lot of muscle wasting. So when you look at someone like Gandhi years ago, he was very, very thin. He muscle wasted. Do you live longer? Absolutely. But who the hell wants to live longer where you have cognitive decline and you're weak? So I like intermittent fasting for intermittent periods.
I want to add something to that, another negative of intermittent fasting, and that's the way most people do intermittent fasting is they don't eat in the morning. So they make their window of eating something like 12 to 7 o'clock or something like that. So that they're fasting, they wake up at 6 or 7 and they don't eat until 12 o'clock. There's a big problem with that as opposed to making your fasting window later in the day. When you don't eat in the morning, you don't break your fast soon enough so your cortisol stays elevated. And then you have all the problems associated with constantly elevated cortisol. And that can lead to a lot of problems, stress, anxiety, as well as potential cardiovascular issues because your excess cortisol is not something that we want to mess around with all the time. And you do get that if you fast in the morning. So I don't like it for that reason. If you look at all of the benefits of intermittent fasting, and they're pretty broad, you can take every single one of those benefits and say that's a direct result of lowering your insulin levels and increasing your sensitivity to insulin. Because I started looking at all of the positive research for intermittent fasting. Say, okay, it's good for...
You cut out.
It's good for intermittent, it's good for brain function, it's good for fat loss, it's good for all these things. Well, I can show you also an equally valid scientific study that shows you just simply having lower insulin levels achieves all of those exact same things. So that's what intermittent fasting does, is it controls your insulin levels. And you can control your insulin levels without intermittent fasting as long as you eat more of a ketogenic style diet, whatever you want to call it, a Paleolithic diet, keto diet, as long as your carbohydrate load is low enough to where you're not producing excess insulin, you'll get these results even if you don't intermittent fast.
So to complement what you just said, for those of you who have listened to my radio show, Doc, I don't know if you were on at the time, but I was talking about Dr. Sachin Panda, who studies circadian rhythms. And for any of you who want to listen to my past radio shows, Dr. Webster's been on many of them. Go to iTunes or iHeartRadio and put in @George DiGianni. Please rate and subscribe to the show. But Dr. Sachin Panda says, and to complement Dr. Webster, your point about eating in the morning, he said we should eat during daylight hours only. So 8 to 12-hour periods of time is when we should eat. So when you look at the summer you can have those 12-hour periods because you're awake longer, you're more active. But during the winter, your periods of eating are going to be shorter because daylight is shorter. So when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, the first thing I do is go work out because I'm actually going to want to eat. But Dr. Sachin Panda says, wait for that sun to come up. Do not eat until that sun comes up because you're forcing your organs to work at their optimal levels when they don't want to.
George, that advice that you give when people wake up at 4:30 and don't eat until a little bit later helps exactly 0 people because you're the only person that wakes up at 4:30 in the morning.
But I can't help. You know how some people go to sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning? Like Elon Musk, Mark Cuban does the same thing, right? I'm the guy who's like knocked out at 9:45 at night, but I wake up at 4:30 and I can't help it. I get up and start working. So another question came in, Doc. Let's talk about this from Michael. How does the average person learn to read studies? What are the resources to use to educate yourself? So remember when you and I talked about reading studies not too long ago? The part that bothers me with studies, and I just want to like kind of bullet point this for people real fast. When you read a study, it's not the end all be all. And it just gives me, it gives me tired head. How were you involved in the study? 7 or 10,000 people. Is that average for the rest of the 7.1 billion people in the world that we're all supposed to live that way? 6 to 12 week study. That's supposed to be the end all be all. Who funded the study? I mean, on and on and on and on, all of these variables. So when we look at a study, let's not make that the end all be all and then switch our life and say that's the way we're supposed to live. Look at consensus of many studies over a period of time that give you the same suggestion.
That's great advice. And if you want to really get deep into looking at scientific studies, the only way you're going to do this is if you take statistics classes and you understand some of the things that they're using, the p-value, you know, things like that are talking about the average probability that this study is accurate. how many people were in the study, like you mentioned, but also don't look at necessarily at the conclusion, don't look at the title of the study, and certainly don't look at the article that's citing the study and look at the headline of that article. You're getting way removed from what the study often says. The study could come out and determine one thing, and then the title of that study maybe fudges a little bit and makes it sound like it's a little bit more than what their data actually supported. And then when the guy in Newsweek or USA Today or whatever it may be reports on that study, then he kind of expands it a little bit more. And by the time you read his headline, it has nothing to do with what the data from the scientific study actually shows.
So Webster, are you saying that fake news exists?
What? Of course.
Right. There has
of course.
sensational.
Everyone has their agenda.
It has to be this.
Everyone has their agenda, and if they can write a catchy headline to sell more papers, more magazines, get more clicks on their blog,
right,
they will do it, even if it's only moderately true. There might be some truth to it, but it may not be the whole truth. And in some cases, it's not true at all.
Hey, have you heard of one other question, and then we'll let everybody go? Have you researched the warrior diet? I have not.
Nope.
Here's one thing that I've learned.
My guess is it's Paleolithic.
Yeah. Here's one thing I've learned as time has gone on, and we've looked at like this tired head of all these stupid diets, or just tons of diets in general, is that the body doesn't change every year when a new diet comes out.
Oh, good point.
You know, the ketogenic diet, it's not like I want to push that for everyone, but the ketogenic diet's been studied since the 1920s. 1920s. And it was developed for people with epilepsy, but they found that there's many, many, many more benefits to it. So I want to get into that here in the future as well. And my idea of what I wanted us to try to accomplish today, we didn't accomplish. I wanted to expand upon my first video last week, which is the why you do what you do and the reason you have the life you do, well, whether that's something that's beneficial to you or not. I want to talk more about those things maybe in the next video. So I'm really glad what we did today. I think we accomplished a lot, and I still want to create more foundational videos. So today, I feel there was a lot of foundation. It was your story, my story. We learned more about each other, even though we've known each other all these years. Information about the studies, how people can be self-sufficient, looking at challenges in a way that give you a different perception or perspective about how you can utilize those and recognize maybe those are a blessing because of the direction you have today. I want to talk about the why next time, because the why isn't always about health and fitness. Sometimes it's you're 30 years old and you got married. Why? Did you get married because you were 30 and you felt old? Did you get married because that's the thing to do? Or you pressured into get married? Did you get married because you felt that the person you're with, you wouldn't find another person again that could match this person or somebody better? There's no wrong. It's just, why do you do what you do? We're coming up to the end of the year. People are going to go on another diet. They're going to take some new products, services, supplements, and so on. But why?
Why? Good point. And I want to also let people know at this point in our first real show, their first main show, is that we're going to start doing things, about things on a really foundational level. I think that's the key to all this. It's going to be foundational stuff. It's going to be key foundational points about diet, key foundational points about exercise. We might spend some time talking about fringe studies or fringe exercises or fringe supplements or nutrients that might have some interesting research behind them, as far as it might make for fun conversation. But if you don't have the foundational tools in place, if you don't have the basics of diet, it doesn't matter what you call the diet. If you don't have the basics of how you eat food and your relationship with food, and if you don't have the basics of how we move and exercise and get our body stimulated in some manner, if you don't have the basics of those things, you're not going to be successful no matter which exotic plant or herb or vitamin you take. They're just not going to help you that much. Doesn't mean they won't help you at all, but they won't help you as much as if you get the foundation right. And that also includes things like sleeping right and digesting right and simply talking right, so that you have a positive outlook on yourself. It affects your stress level, and stress can affect virtually everything else in your life. So I want to, in the next couple episodes, really dive deep into some foundational guidelines about our relationship with food, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on board. And when we talk about success, we're talking about sustainable success. So kind of complementing what you were talking about, where you look at your life differently, yourself differently. You could have the perfect diet for you, genetically, current status, the right doctors. But if you don't feel worthy enough, your likelihood of success is low. If your why isn't large enough, your likelihood of success is low. If you have a low self-worth, you're most likely going to sabotage any results or prevent yourself from moving in that direction in the first place. And then what do? You blame it on the doctor, the expert, the products, the supplements, the service. No, don't look outside of yourself. Look within. And we have to expand more on those things. Oh, maybe in every single episode, just to let people know what we offer is beneficial. But it's only beneficial if you comply and you feel worthy enough to have sustainable success. So Dr. Webster's website is CompleteHealthDallas.com. Highly recommend you go there. Mine, 21daybodymakeover.com. And we'll try to do a show. What do you think, Dr. Webster, next week?
I'd say Wednesday at noon is a good time.
All right, so we'll do it again next Wednesday at noon. We'll have a different topic for you. In the meantime, you can listen to my radio show live this week if you'd like, 6:50 a.m. Central Time. You can listen if you're out of state, theticket.com, listen live, or you can go to podcast, which is iHeartRadio, iTunes, at George DiGianni. We'll talk with you soon, and I hope you.
Hey, very, very important before we break.
Yeah.
Please share this. If you found this important and you think that the future shows will be important, share this on your Facebook, because that will allow all of your friends who aren't our friends currently to see the video and possibly start seeing this this program start showing up in their feed. So please share it for us if you want.
Good idea. Thanks, Doc. Have a great day.
Hey, George.